Chapter 1, The Nightmare Begins. A sharp, metallic scent filled Sophia's nostrils as she jolted awake, her head pounded, a dull ache radiating behind her eyes. She gasped for air, her lungs burning as though she had been drowning moments before. Where was she? Blinking rapidly, she sat up and took in her surroundings. A bedroom. Lavish, modern, unfamiliar. Golden light poured in through floor-to-ceiling windows, revealing a city skyline she didn't recognize. The silk sheets beneath her felt too soft, too foreign. This wasn't her home. This wasn't her bed. Panic clawed at her chest. She stumbled out of bed, her bare feet sinking into plush carpeting. Her pulse thundered in her ears as she staggered toward a floor-length mirror near the dresser. And then she saw her reflection. The breath in her throat froze. It wasn't her face staring back. The woman in the mirror had high cheekbones, full lips painted a deep red, and waves of dark brown hair cascading over her shoulders. Her skin was flawless, her body lean and poised like a model's. It was Isabelle Laurent. The name hit Sophia like a punch to the gut. Isabelle Laurent, the woman she despised more than anyone. The woman her husband Ethan had once loved. The woman who had made Sophia's life a living hell before mysteriously vanishing a year ago. And now, somehow, impossibly, Sophia was in her body. No, she whispered, stumbling back. This isn't real. Her fingers trembled as she touched her face, tracing over features that didn't belong to her. She reached for the phone on the nightstand, her breath shuddering as she dialed Ethan's number. The line rang twice before a cold, clipped voice answered. What do you want, Isabelle? Sophia froze. Her husband's voice, usually warm and steady, was sharp with disdain. She swallowed hard. What was she supposed to say? That she had woken up in Isabelle's body? That she didn't know what was happening? Ethan, listen to me. It's me, Sophia. The line went dead. He had hung up. Sophia's heart slammed against her ribs. He hated Isabelle. Of course he did. She turned back toward the room, her mind spinning. She needed to find answers. Frantically, she rifled through drawers, searching for anything that could explain what had happened. In the desk, beneath a stack of neatly arranged documents, she found a thin black folder. The label on the front made her blood run cold. With trembling hands, she flipped it open. The first thing she saw made her knees go weak. A marriage certificate. Ethan Calloway and Isabelle Laurent, dated before she and Ethan had ever married. Her vision blurred as she stared at the document. Her entire world tilted. Her husband, Ethan, had been married to Isabelle first. Inside the folder is a contract, a secret marriage certificate between Ethan and Isabelle dated before Sophia and Ethan married. Chapter 2, Lies Beneath the Surface. Sophia's hands trembled as she clutched the marriage certificate. The words blurred together, her mind refusing to accept what she was seeing. Ethan had been married to Isabelle, not just involved, married. She pressed her palm against her forehead, trying to steady her breathing. How could this be possible? Ethan had never once mentioned a past marriage. He had always spoken of Isabelle as a mistake, an ex-girlfriend he regretted ever getting involved with. But this wasn't just some old flame. This was something far more sinister. Heart-pounding, she flipped through the folder, scanning the rest of the documents. Bank statements, letters, and what looked like a contract. The details were vague, but one thing was clear. Isabelle had been planning something. And now, somehow, Sophia was trapped in her body. She needed answers. Fast. Dressed in one of Isabelle's sleek, high-end outfits, Sophia left the penthouse. Every second she spent in this unfamiliar skin made her feel like a fraud, like she was playing a role in someone else's twisted nightmare. Her first stop, Isabelle's closest friends, or more accurately, her accomplices. From what Sophia remembered, Isabelle had been surrounded by people who thrived on wealth, scandal, and secrets. She headed to an upscale lounge where she knew Isabelle had often been seen. The moment she stepped inside, heads turned. Whispers followed her as she strode to the bar, feigning confidence. "Screwdriver," she ordered, her voice coming out smoother than she expected. A man slid into the seat beside her, tall, charismatic, dangerous. His dark eyes flickered with something she couldn't read. Well, he murmured, his voice rich with amusement. "Back from the dead, are we?" Sophia stiffened. "What do you mean?" she asked, forcing herself to sound casual. He smirked, swirling the amber liquid in his glass. "Don't play games, Isabelle. You disappeared for a year. Everyone thought you were either dead or running from something. So tell me, which was it?" Sophia's pulse quickened. Isabel had vanished? She scrambled for a response, but before she could speak, the man leaned closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. I knew you'd come back eventually, he said, because you didn't finish what you started. A chill ran down her spine. What had Isabel been planning? Before she could push for more, her phone buzzed. Unknown number, 9 p.m., Hotel Vance, room 714. If you want answers. The husband who hates her. There was only one person Sophia needed to see before chasing shadows. Ethan, if there was any part of him that still loved her, Sophia, maybe he would believe her. She texted him from Isabel's phone. We need to talk. Now. To her relief, he responded. Fine. The office. In 30 minutes. And don't try anything, Isabel. The hostility in his words stung. When she arrived at his office, Ethan barely looked at her. He leaned against his desk, arms crossed, his face an unreadable mask. The sight of him nearly shattered her. He was the same Ethan, her Ethan, yet every ounce of warmth was gone. I don't know what game you're playing, he said coolly, but you won't manipulate me this time. Sophia swallowed hard. Ethan, I don't, he snapped. His eyes darkened. You faked your death for an entire year. Now you come back. Expecting what? That I just forgive you? Sophia's throat tightened. Isabel had been presumed dead? This was bigger than she realized. Why do you hate me so much? She whispered, needing to hear his answer. His jaw clenched. For a second, something flickered in his eyes. Pain. Then he laughed bitterly. You seriously have to ask? Sophia waited, her heartbeat roaring in her ears. Ethan exhaled sharply. Because you ruined my life, Isabel. You destroyed everything I cared about. The words hit like a slap. What had Isabel done? But before she could press him further, his phone rang. He glanced at the screen, and his expression changed instantly. Softer. Loving. Hey, he murmured, his entire demeanor shifting. Sophia's stomach dropped. She knew that look, that tenderness. That was how he used to speak to her. Who was on the other end of that call? Her fingers curled into fists. She needed to get out of there before she fell apart completely. Shaken, Sophia returned to Isabel's penthouse, determined to find something, anything that could explain what had happened to her. She tore through drawers, flipped through files, and searched the depths of the walk-in closet. Nothing made sense. Until she found the diary. The black leather-bound book sat hidden beneath a pile of old designer scarves. With trembling fingers, she flipped it open. Most of the entries were cryptic, but one stood out. The last entry. If something happens to me, don't trust Ethan. He's hiding something bigger than I am. Sophia's breath hitched. What had Ethan done? Her hands shook as she turned the page. An envelope slipped out, landing at her feet. Inside was a sheet of paper. A DNA test. Her eyes scanned the results, her heart slamming against her ribs. Chapter 3. A Stranger in My Skin. Sophia's fingers tightened around the DNA test results. The letters on the page swam before her eyes, her mind struggling to process what they meant. Ethan Calloway is not who he claims to be. Her stomach twisted. What did that mean? Did Ethan have a different identity? Had he lied about his past, and how had Isabel known? A sickening thought formed in the back of her mind. Had Isabel's knowledge of this secret cost her life? She shoved the test results into Isabel's diary and hurried out of the penthouse. If she wanted answers, she needed to find the one person who might be able to give them to her. Herself. Or rather, the woman currently living in her body. The imposter wearing her skin. Sophia's hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly that her knuckles turned white. The drive to her home, her real home, felt like a fever dream. When she pulled up to the house, she hesitated. The lights were on. Shadows moved behind the curtains. Someone was inside. Her heart pounded as she crept toward the window. She peered inside and nearly collapsed. There, in the living room, curled up on the couch with Ethan, was herself, Sophia's real body. And Ethan, her husband, was looking at the woman inside it with an expression of pure adoration. His arm was draped over her shoulders, his fingers tracing circles on her skin. Sophia's stomach churned. This wasn't possible. How could this be happening? Desperate for answers, she pulled out her phone and dialed Ethan's number again. If she could just hear his voice, if she could just make him listen. Through the window, she saw Ethan glance at his phone. He frowned at the screen, and then instead of answering, he declined the call. Sophia's throat tightened. He wouldn't even give Isabel the time of day. And yet, Here he was, holding another woman like she was his whole world. That woman was in her body. Sophia's vision blurred with rage and confusion. Who the hell was she? She needed to get closer, to hear their voices. Silently, she crept around the side of the house, stopping near the open patio doors. She could hear them speaking now, their voices low and intimate. "You've been acting strange lately," Ethan murmured. Sophia held her breath. The imposter chuckled softly. "Just tired, that's all." Ethan exhaled, pulling her closer. "I don't know what I'd do if I lost you again." Sophia felt like she had been punched in the chest. Lost her again? She gripped the doorframe, her nails digging into the wood, and then the imposter spoke again with Sophia's voice. "I love you, Ethan." A tear slipped down Sophia's cheek. The worst part? Ethan didn't hesitate. He smiled, kissed the imposter's forehead, and whispered, "I love you too, Sophia." Sophia bit back a scream. This wasn't just someone in her body. This person had taken her entire life. Shaking, she stumbled away from the house and into her car. She needed more answers. Driving back to Isabel's penthouse, she yanked out the diary and flipped through the pages. If Isabel had known something about Ethan, something dangerous, then maybe there was more hidden in here. One of the earlier entries caught her eye. He wasn't supposed to fall in love with her. That wasn't the plan. Sophia's pulse spiked. She was just a means to an end, but now if I tell her the truth, I'll lose everything. And if they find out I switched him, they'll kill me. Switched him? Her breath hitched. Had Isabel done something to Ethan's identity? She flipped through more pages, her fingers trembling. Isabel had known something about Ethan's past, something that made her a threat. But before she could expose him, she had vanished. Or rather, she had swapped places with someone else. Sophia swallowed hard. What if this body swap, whatever had happened to her, wasn't the first time this had been done? She shut the diary, her mind racing. Someone had taken her life. And now she had a terrifying suspicion. She wasn't the only one. The message that changed everything. Her phone buzzed, making her jump. A message from an unknown number. "Meet me if you want to know why you died." Sophia's hands shook as she read the words again. Her blood ran cold. She had never died. Had she? But what if? No. She refused to believe it, but one thing was clear. Someone out there knew the truth, and they were waiting for her. In Chapter 4, Who is My Husband? Sophia stared at the message on her phone, her fingers gripping it so tightly that her knuckles turned white. "Meet me if you want to know why you died." She wasn't dead. She couldn't be. But the person texting her thought otherwise. Her heart pounded as she checked the location attached to the message. A secluded cafe on the outskirts of the city. Whoever sent this knew the truth, and she needed that truth more than anything. The meeting that changed everything. The cafe was dimly lit, nearly empty, except for a few customers hunched over their drinks. Sophia's gaze swept the room, searching for someone who looked like they were expecting her. Then she saw him. A man sitting at a corner table, his hood pulled low over his face. The moment she stepped inside, he raised his head slightly. His sharp green eyes locked onto hers. Sophia's stomach twisted. She knew him. Or at least, Isabel did. She cautiously approached the table. "Are you the one who sent the message?" The man smirked, gesturing for her to sit. "Nice to see you again, Isabel." She hesitated, then lowered herself into the seat across from him. "How do you know me?" His smirk faltered. "So it's true. You don't remember." Her pulse quickened. "Remember what?" The man leaned forward. "You weren't supposed to come back." Sophia stiffened. "I don't know what game you're playing," she said carefully, "but I need answers. Now." The man exhaled, studying her face. "You really don't know, do you?" She clenched her fists. "Know what?" He hesitated before pulling something from his pocket. A photo. Sophia's blood ran cold. It was a picture of Ethan, but not the Ethan she knew. This Ethan was younger, with different eyes, a different build, a different face. Her breath hitched. "What is this?" she whispered. The man's voice was grim, the real Ethan Calloway. Sophia's world tilted. The man she married wasn't Ethan Calloway. The stolen identity. Sophia could barely breathe. She stared at the photograph, her mind racing. "That's impossible." The man shook his head. "No, Isabel, it's not." She flinched at the name but stayed silent, waiting for him to continue. He tapped the photo. "The real Ethan Calloway disappeared years ago. And the man you're married to? He took his place. Sophia's stomach twisted. Who is he? If he's not Ethan, then... That's the question, isn't it? The man said darkly. She swallowed hard. You're saying my husband is a fraud, he finished for her. And you knew. Sophia's breath caught. The man exhaled sharply. Isabel, you were involved. You knew the truth about Ethan, about the switch. That's why you disappeared. Sophia shook her head violently. No, I don't remember any of this. The man studied her, his expression unreadable. Then he slid something else across the table, another document. She hesitated before picking it up. A second DNA test. Not Ethan's this time. Hers. Her hands trembled as she scanned the results, and then her world shattered. The identity crisis. The paper slipped from her fingers. She couldn't speak, couldn't think. The DNA test proved she wasn't Isabelle Laurent. Her breath came in ragged gasps. That's not possible. The man watched her carefully. You're starting to understand, aren't you? Tears burned in her eyes. Then who the hell am I? Silence. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, he said, That's what you need to find out. The truth at the doorstep. Shaken, Sophia left the cafe, the test results clutched in her hands. If she wasn't Isabel, then who had taken her life? Who was in her body? There was only one way to find out. She drove straight back to her house, to Ethan and the imposter wearing her face. She wasn't going to hide anymore. She was going to confront them. But as she stepped onto the porch, her stomach clenched. The front door was slightly ajar, and inside she could hear voices, raised, desperate. She pushed the door open. Ethan stood in the middle of the living room, his face twisted with something between rage and desperation. The woman in Sophia's body stood opposite him, her expression unreadable. Neither of them noticed her. Not until Ethan grabbed the imposter's wrist and said, We have to leave. Now. Before she finds out the truth. Sophia's breath caught in her throat. The imposter stiffened. She's already here. Ethan's head snapped up, and his eyes locked onto Sophia's. For a split second, raw terror flashed across his face, and in that moment, Sophia knew. Whatever secret Ethan was hiding, it was something worth killing for.